every now and then you get a chance to chop it up with Dr. Kanisha Keating or Denisha Keating. I thought for a second there, I thought I was going to do Kanisha Deating. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Can't complain. Got some
Yeah,
cashews, one of my favorite nuts.
love it.
So talk a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I just my story is kind of a lot. I mean, I've grew up in a not great environment, ended up in foster care and raising my siblings. Ended up being their legal guardian in 2015 when I
Oh,
took them in. I was 24 years old.
oh
And
wow.
so that became a journey of becoming their actual legal guardian and being responsible for them. But started advocating after I finished my PhD just to help other foster youth know that they could do what they set their mind to. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely hard. And there might not be people who support you or encourage you to go and do that. But you have to, take the reins of your own life and try to figure it out, even when the information's not readily available. But I've been doing that since 2021 and just sharing with whoever I can, just because I know that there are a lot of people out there who have had a hard life, even if they didn't deal with foster care, they still had a messy childhood, and that has left wounds that they've had to try to clean up and figure out. So it is one of those things that when you sit with people and just hear their stories, you start to learn like everyone's gone through something, and we all hold it differently. And so that's just definitely something that um, you don't understand until you sit with people and start to do that. But I've learned a lot through this journey of just sharing stories and listening to people, but then also knowing like my story is very big and if I get into the nitty-gritty of it all, it's a lot. And that's okay that it's a lot to process with that.
My grandmother raised me and she taught me something super valuable at a young age. And she always said, better out than in.
Hmm.
Like, get whatever's on your mind out. This way you'll
Yeah.
go to your grave with no regrets. And
Well, yeah, and our body holds pain. And that's something that people don't realize is, there's a book that is called The Body Holds the Score, and it's an older book that's been around for a long time. If you've done anything with a psychology class, you most likely have read it. But it is the reality is that our body does hold what we've gone through. Our mind may forget, but our body always will remember. So it's like when we've talked about it and worked through it, we're not having it hold on to making our bodies sick. And that's what's wild is that when we look at the research behind it, we see that trauma can actually impact how the body functions. So people who tend to get migraines or have stomach issues or tend to have maybe they get sick really easily during stressful times. It usually is their body's way of saying like, hey, something's wrong, and I'm remembering something. And I think that that's crazy to me is when we start to read that book, we're like, oh, the body does hold the score. And it is true that my mind, I might have forgotten the memory, but walking by a place where maybe I got jumped or had someone say something really rude to me, you start to remember that physically before your brain starts to remember the memory.
well, that kind of brings me back to what my grandmother always said. You got to let
Hmm.
things go. You got to literally get it
Yeah.
out of your system and let things go because when you hold on to things, you really do hold on to them inside your
Right.
body.
Right. Yeah. And it is true. Like I didn't ever think of that before. But then starting to go through like back through memories of like migraines and things like that, not being able to find anything actually wrong with my body. It was like, oh, it was during the times that I had the worst migraines were during the times where the chaos was so bad. And then sometimes too, what we don't realize is that it's delayed. So, we might have been fine the 6 month of the trauma going through all of it, and then we get to the end of it, and 2 years later our body starts to say, okay, now I'm ready to release what's internal. And so it's connected to that as well.
Yeah, I think you're onto something really good there. And when you work with people, what are some of the things that you teach them?
The biggest thing is I talk with a lot of foster youth who have been told like you're not going to become something, or well, the statistics show this, that we're just not going to make it. And the thing I try to tell them is the same thing that a professor told me early on, is that after 18 I'm in the driver's seat. I couldn't control what happened before that. That was my parents controlling it. However, at 18 it is my job to figure it out for myself. So I he said If you woke up in 10 years from now, would you be happy at the choices you've made or upset at the choices that you've made? He didn't care about the destination. He's just like, what choices are you making today that you're going to be proud of in 10 years or happy with or okay with? And I started to think through some of those and I was like, that's insane. So I share that with every single foster youth of just like, look, is this something that you're going to be happy about, a choice that you've made? Or are you going to be disappointed? Does this choice lead to complete destruction of your life, or does it improve your life? Because that, I don't think we think long term when we make a choice. We think of the right now. I'm an emotion, usually an emotion of panic or exhaustion or fear that I'm making the choice out of, instead of sitting back and saying, you know what, let me wait to make this big decision that could end up altering the course of where I'm going and make it take longer for me. So that, and then the other thing I teach them is it doesn't matter how long it takes to get there. Sometimes it takes a long time to get our bachelor's done. That's going to happen. If we hit a roadblock with housing, we're going to have to take longer in school. That's the reality. We might not get to go to our dream school because we can't afford it, but maybe we find an alternative school that we go to get the degree done so we can get a job to keep housing. Like, so
Well,
it's very
if you think
basic.
about it too, sometimes things happen that you
Yeah.
think initially are, oh man, I didn't get what I wanted. And
Yeah, and it's
guess what you
protection.
got that was maybe like not what you wanted ultimately led you to something better. And I
Yeah,
tell people all the time, just because God changes the lane that you're driving in doesn't mean you're going in the wrong direction.
right. And that's it, the only time you are going in the wrong direction is when you're going in the wrong direction. You could be
Yeah,
working super
exactly.
hard and you could be
That's
doing
very
the best that you
profound.
can, but
The
if
only
you're
time you're
going the
going in
wrong
the wrong
way,
direction is when you're going in the wrong direction.
but it's hard to know. It's like you have to determine that. But if you're working, the hardest thing is everyone's always like, if you work hard, you'll will eventually arrive. But if you're going the wrong way, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're just getting further away from that destination. And so, one of the biggest things that the conversations that come up is like, well, if I were to sell drugs or prostitute myself, it's like, okay, yeah, those are things you could absolutely go do, but it is going to get you further away from where you actually want to be in a safe place because it's going to lead to other things. And those things are not safe things to engage in. So we have to make that decision to say, okay, what can I do? What jobs can I get? I'm going to have to work 3 jobs. I'm going to have to go to school part-time. I'm going to have to learn a trade job. I'm going to have to do what I need to do to go in that right direction. Now, it might be something off track, but still going in the direction of moving forward. But it's not the end of the world because you had to change a little bit of your direction. It's only bad if you're going the wrong way. And that's something that it's like it doesn't matter how hard you work if you're going the wrong way. But if you're going in the direction you have to take a side street to get there in a safe way, that does happen. Maybe you do need to change the career trajectory you're going in. Maybe the field that you're wanting to be in is not a field that's going to be hiring a lot. Get into a field that is hiring, change that direction so that way you're able to land on your feet, get a home and to get a car and then to do that and then do the dream job that you would love to do on the side. But don't risk it all for something that's not guaranteed. But making sure, it's better to have a job and to be able to pay your bills and then do your little adventure or dream thing on the side than not to do it at all. But you might not be able to have your dream job as your dream job. It just is a reality is that sometimes you're gonna have to do the hard things to get where you need to go because you don't have anyone protecting you and standing up for you and providing for your needs. So you have to do all of that by yourself. And it's kind of like the easiest way I had to tell a few of my friends when I took my siblings in, it was like, look, I don't have time to play. You have time to play and figure it out. I do not. So for me, I have to do the hard things now, and I have to hope that this is going to work. It's worked for other people. I know that it works, so now I need to just hope that it works for me. And now I'm 35 and I've been done with school since I was 31 or 32. And I've the last couple of years have been just building my business, building what I do, going around and speaking. And I'm not trying to figure out what I want to do in life. While there are some of my friends who are now 35, 37, 40 years old, still trying to figure out what they want to do with their life because they played around a lot during their 20s. And they never took a moment to say, you know what, let me really try this out. It was just, I want to travel, which is not bad, but it's like if you delay the hard work, it's you're going to be dealing with it in your 30s and 40s than doing the hard work in your 20s. So, and that was something else someone told me, and I tell a lot of foster youth that like here's the reality is that we have to do the hard work now. We don't have the luxury of putting it off. But it will make us stronger in our 30s once we're like, oh, we don't have to do the bachelor's degree or the trade job or, sleep on friends' couches at 35 because I didn't do the hard work in my 20s. And that's a hard thing to sit in. It's not just like it's easy. It's like this is really hard to sit in while you watch your friends go off and travel and have fun and parents provide cars for them. Like we don't get that luxury. That's definitely something different to live by, but it is a hard thing to sit in and say, I gotta pick myself up. I gotta go, which doesn't sit well with some people.
No, exactly.
And
And
I get why.
by the way, a lot of people let fear hold them back in life. How do
Oh
you
yeah.
overcome fear? How do you teach people to overcome fear?
It's going to sound really weird, but you have to go afraid. I have gone fearful in so many ways. Going into school was fearful for its own reasons because I had a lack of education from K through 12. I had very little. I basically just had 3 years of high school of real education, and that was it. So I was very behind in school. So I went afraid every single day. But then taking in my siblings, I had no idea what I was doing. And I had to figure it out every single day. And I was scared that I was going to lose them. I was scared I was going to lose my job. I was always afraid of not being able to pay a
How old
bill.
was the youngest sibling when you started at
12
25?
years old. Legally, when I took them in, had been taking care of them since they were babies, but legally taking them in and me becoming the parent was they were 12, 14, 15, 18, and 19. But because we didn't have birth certificates or social security cards, the older two had a hard time getting a job. They didn't have their high school diplomas done, so we had to work on their GEDs. So it was all of these things that were the world was stacked against them, and we had to do it like in little spurts because it's a lot and it's overwhelming and it costed money. But I you have to go afraid sometimes. You're not going to be ready. But you can also spend your time instead of scrolling and fighting on people on social media with people, you can spend your time learning how to do something to help improve your life. And that's something I think I've always kind of done is I've binge watched shows all the time, but then I'm like working on something on the side because I want it to improve my life 5 years from now. It doesn't matter what shows you know in 5 years. If you don't have the ability to pay your bills, that kind of sucks. So not just book smart, but street smart. Learn how to do little things like fix your own car to save some money, but don't ruin your car. Like you want to make
Yeah,
sure you're doing. But there we have Google and Chat GPT and AI at
YouTube.
our fingertips. We can figure out how to do hard things, but it doesn't mean we're going to go ready. It might usually means we're going to fail a lot. And that's where we actually learn the most is in failure. And I don't think failure is a bad thing. I think that it's actually a good thing. It helps us learn how to pivot. It helps us learn how to change it up. But we're going to make mistakes. And I think we get so afraid of making mistakes that we never move at all. But it's like mistakes are part of learning. That's a good thing. But we were always taught to get the A in class. So making a mistake meant you lost points. It's like that's a good thing because you're learning. Now, sit with someone, that has straight A's. They've said multiple times, I haven't learned anything. I just know how to get the A's. Okay, then, but I learned something and I got a C. So at least I know what the information is. But that is really hard to it's just no one I know who ever has done what they've done, even like multimillionaires, they're just like, I went afraid every single day. I hustled and I did what I had to do and I worked hard and I took people's advice and I learned and I applied what I learned. They went and failed thousands of times. And that is part of growth. But the ones who didn't fail and didn't learn, they're still stuck in where they were 20, 25 years ago. And I think that's where it's very hard when you're in that position that you're not going to take that and say, you know what, let me go try. I've been with a few people where they push back and they're like, no, you don't understand. It was easy for you. And I'm like, it was never easy for me. But people just kind of get in that mindset is, well, you just don't understand. But it's like, I know so many people now who are very successful and they have, by the world standards of money and cars and houses and all that stuff. And they've said, I learned from other people. I went afraid and I messed up and I made mistakes on purpose to learn and to pivot and to let myself fail so that I could understand what was going on and how to fix it.
You know, you just said something that I think a lot of people should learn to do, and that is let yourself fail because failure is a great teacher. And I think sometimes people don't understand that failing is one of the best ways that you learn things in life.
Right. It's the only way to really learn. Now, you can learn from somebody else's failure. You don't have to fail yourself.
That is
But if
true.
you were to
But I
learn
will say, when you do fail yourself, those are the lessons that you learn a lot.
sometimes, I've seen people fail a lot, and I mean like things like commit really bad felonies and they're just like, "Oh, whatever," and they just never learn from that. But it really takes the persons themselves being like, "You know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be further from this. I want to be on that side of things." But failure is where we do learn from mistakes. And I don't think we really learn from the successes. You know, someone can win $1,000 and be like, cool, I have $1,000 and blow it tomorrow versus the person who's failed. They're like, okay, let me save this. Let me go try to get more money. Let me go try to do this because they know that money is actually scarce. It's not just going to come from everybody everywhere else. Like you have to learn to manage what you also have. So, you know, you don't just blow everything all the time. Like you really do want to learn how to manage what you have worked hard for and then make it something that is going to, you know, bring more wins around. But you're going to learn more from failing than just from succeeding right away. No one learns from that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And people sometimes are afraid to fail, but in reality, don't be afraid to fail. If you fail in life, it's not the end of the world. It's never going to be the end of the world.
Right. But I think we start that early. I mean, I only went to high school, but I've heard from a lot of friends where it's like the only awards that you ever see schools giving out are for people who did really well in school. They had, you know, 4.0s, five, you know, 4 point whatevers in high school that they were the students that were always awarded, but nobody ever really looked at until recently really looked at the student who had improved the most. And so now some schools will actually give awards for like the most improved student in like K through 5 because they're just like, we understand that there might be a kid who is not doing well in school, but is working really hard to try to get there because maybe they have dyslexia or maybe they have a hard home life and that there was interruptions. So I think it is something that we've learned from a very young age that the only thing that mattered was getting it right the first time because that gave you the good grade versus being able to actually learn. And that's where I think we fear failure so much is because of that.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, one of the things that I tell people all the time is you gotta make each and every day count. Like everyone, so many people plan things in the future, but the future sometimes never comes.
Hmm.
And sometimes people hang on to the past forever. And in reality, the past is gone. You can't change anything from yesterday.
Hmm.
How do you deal with focusing on the now instead of the past or the future?
I think that the past does play into the present, but the present absolutely plays into the future. So a lot of people say, well, I'll do that next Monday. And it's like, well, what can you do today to make that happen now so you get in the habit of doing that? I think they say it takes about 8 weeks for someone to create a habit. And that's doing it every single day, not every week, but every single day, doing the same thing to create an actual habit. It takes eight to 12 weeks or something like that. And I think that that's an accurate statement. But what we tend to do is we go, well, we have to do everything today or nothing at all. So some of us are all or nothing, where it's everything or nothing at all. And then others of us is, I can't even take the first step because I'm so afraid of taking that first step. But the little things are what create the big things. So we might not get a win today if you're running a business. Maybe you've put yourself out there 100 times, but you gotten zero people today to come and buy from your business. But that might be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 10 months from now that someone comes back and they're like, hey, are you still doing this? So that's where it's beneficial to consistently be putting your name out there and stop tracking how many times you emailed people and just send stuff out and see what happens. But it is every single day you want to be working on something to help yourself, but also today you might give 100%, tomorrow you might give 50%, but that was all you could give. That's still you giving the best that you could for tomorrow. But if you're not willing to even try to start something today, tomorrow is going to be the same reason. I'll just start tomorrow. I'll start the next day. I'll start Thursday. I'll start Monday. And someone says, I heard someone they were a fitness instructor and they said a lot of my clients will say they start on Monday and Monday never comes because Monday keeps changing to Monday and that never ever happens for them. So start today. If you have that in your head, do a 10-minute walk, a 5-minute walk. Do pick up the weights and just do 10 curls real quick. Do something so that
Oh
way
my
you
God, you're now motivating me
yeah,
to go downstairs and pick up some weights.
you got to. But it's even eating healthy. I think eating healthier is harder. It's always that's been a challenge for me.
Unsalted cashews.
Yeah, it's like it's the hardest thing because it's most of the time it's like, well, I don't have the stuff in my house. It's like, okay, then today I go to the store and I get those things that I want to have for the week. And that's the reason you also don't go to the store hungry is because then you get all the stuff that looks good versus the stuff that'll actually be healthy. So
Not
it's
shop when you're hungry. That is such a bad
can't shop when
idea.
you're hungry, but it's also like that people will revert that to, well, I can't do this because I'm not in a good place financially or physically or mentally or emotionally to start today. And it's like just do something, even if it's 5 minutes. Create a list of what you want to do for the next week. Do something to where it's like tomorrow I'm going to do this task. The next day I'm going to do these two tasks. Because now you have a game plan. And that's where people, they say it all the time, like you can't fly by the
You
seat,
should
the seat
talk
of
to a
your
friend of
pants.
mine, Gary Chupik. He has a course he teaches called Game Plan for Life. I think you guys would hit it off.
Oh yeah, probably. I love it. I've taken all the things because it's just it helps, but at some point we have to do. I know a lot of people they struggle because they learn so much, they read so much books, they have so much knowledge, but they never do the activity. And that's where we have to get out of just the learning and the absorbing to the actual doing of what we got to do to create the habits that we need. And I think that it's just hard and it's one day at a time. And I think for me, I always go all in or nothing. And so I have to do little habits. It's like today I'm going to make sure I do this and this thing. Tomorrow I'm going to do this, this, and this thing because then it builds it as a habit.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. Hey, let's end this thing on something uplifting. Let people feel good about this.
Yeah.
Give people an inspirational story, something that will inspire them to do more with their life, to chase their dreams.
Um, that's hard. That's a good question. It's a hard one. But I think if we look at leaving a legacy, I mean, we always see that from people. It's like, what do you want to leave, not financially behind, but what would you like people to remember you by, but also to pick up the mantle and take and carry on. For me, I always come back to like, if sharing my story and coming out and talking to people can help change one person from having to go through the hardships I did, that's worth it. If I could reach one person who's saying, you know what, life's not worth living, like that's going to help them. If my business can help one person get across the finish line in school, that's helpful. So the biggest thing is like if you want to really change somebody's life, don't focus on the hundreds of people that you can focus on. Just focus on one person. First start with yourself and then start looking at other people who you can impact positively because that's the legacy you're going to end up leaving behind is that, people are going to remember like were you someone who came rallied around them or were you someone who was just kind of gone after a while?
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, a lot of people, I always tell them, listen, if you want to make a change in the world today, start with
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
You can control what happens in your life, but it's hard to control or help others because it's up to them. It's up to them to
Yeah.
look deep inside of themselves to make positive changes.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
Awesome. I literally love this. We should do this again sometime in the future.
Yeah. Let me know whenever you
Where are
have
you
some.
located, by the way?
I'm in California.
What part?
Just Southern California.
I was going to say, I'm going to be in Dallas next week. If you were in Dallas for the Vid Summit, I'm going to be
Oh,
shooting
fun.
interviews down there.
Yeah, that'd be great. I won't be there, but that would always be fun to know what events are around. It's hard to find them sometimes.
All right, she's Dr. Denisha Keating. It's been a great talk. I think your story is inspirational. I think it's one where you literally never quit on yourself and you never quit on your siblings. And at the end of the day, never quitting is a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, hold on one second.